guys and gals, Insomnia from UnrealTech.net again. Today in the 13th video we will do as requested, and something that is of course core to a game like this, that is the ability to track kills and deaths. We already created a simple system to display on the GUI when someone kills another. Now we're going to keep track of totals. So download the project if you haven't already, open it up, remember, create your way, and let's get to it. So let's start in our player state. Just ignore this barrel, that's just an example I was doing in this character. In fact, I'm going to save this map. So yeah, let's start in our BP player state. So we have created no functions, however we did give kills and deaths, and we set them to replicate, and we set them to 0 fill at load transient with default values of 0. So similar to our received a chat message, it'll work similar to that. So we're gonna need another event dispatcher called received. Oh, we already did received a kill notify. Never mind, I'm not awake yet. So yeah, killer victim, killer team color, so that'll work just fine. So what we're gonna need to do though is add some functions to the player state. The first one is gonna be called increment kill count, and we're gonna give it an input called, still feels like I did this before, B was friendly, let's just go B was FF kill. Was it a friendly fire kill? And that should be good. So let's go into a branch. So first we want to know if it was a friendly fire kill or not on this player state. If true, we set kill. So if it was a friendly fire kill, dear God, then we set kills to kills. Whoops, to kills. This is much easier with RAM as plugin, but that's fine. Minus an integer, -1. And of course, if you want to say take away 2 kills for friendly fire, by all means edit it here. If it's false, however, then we set kills to itself +1. Like so. So let's just go true, false, works for me. Alright, so that is our increment kills function, and that should be good. We also need one for deaths, so let's add a function called increment deaths count. And so what this will do is we will set deaths, which is of course replicated, to itself +1. So this will allow us to increment our kills and deaths as needed. So yeah, that is that in here for now, I believe. Let's see, because we already set up the receive kill notify, which does the messaging. So yeah, we should be good. Let's move on to our BP player controller. Let's open that up, and while we're at it, let's open up our BP HUD. We haven't been there in a while. And in BP HUD, we want to create a simple function called show kill board. Not the kill list, but the kill board. So this will be the actual count. So we'll just want an input called B killboard shown, and if so, then we want to promote that to, let's promote it to a variable first called B show killboard, just like so. And so all this does is it just stores, or we could say caches, whether or not to show the kill board. the main HUD widget can read from this and do what it needs based on it. So if we want to show it, if we say show the kill board and the widget says okay, we'll show the kill board, but only if you're alive, then whatever, that'll work. So we need that. And let's put show kill board in a category, something like we don't have very many variables yet, so let's compile and save. Where do I have a sequence? Oh right, we never finished that. Actually, since we created our lobby last time, we should do that now, because that's what I was waiting for there. Let's quickly do that. So let's cast to BP game state, and it needs to be imp here, and of course what we're going to cast is the game state. And then we want to get team data. Get teams data, not team data. Still a bit groggy this morning. And we want to get the length. We want to know how many teams we have, basically. Not the lengths. I'm adding S's all over the place. And if it's greater than 0, we go into a branch. If it's false, we need to do a delay, and we do this outside of a function because you can't use latent, what am I trying to say, statements inside of a function. Then we go back and we try again after something like, let's say 0.75 seconds or something, you know, not very long. And that should be that. So if true, however, so that's basically if we don't have any teams. But if we do have a team, at least one, then we create widget. And the widget we're going to create is the lobby. And the owning player, very important, because that involves replicated stuff, is get owning player controller. So whoever owns this HUD. And we also need to go to my lobby. Where are we? UI lobby widget lobby. We need to go to our graph, and we need to add a variable called our HUD, and this will be of type, it'll be a reference to itself, BP HUD, because we're going to use this later, and we want this to be exposed on spawn, and we also probably want it to be editable, and compile and save. So then it'll show up there. So our HUD, we want to do a reference to self. And then we want to promote this to a variable. We'll call it w_lobby. See, now we can create a category. We can go widgets. And then we don't want to add to viewport, we want to add to player screen. Plug that in, and the Z order of 1. Make sure it's on top of everything else. Like so. Perfect. So what this is doing, and we'll probably disconnect it until we finish up the rest of the logic, but all it's doing is we're checking over and over until our game state is valid, and then creates the lobby widget where we choose our team, character class, and say we're ready. We are ready or not, and vote on a map and can chat. We also want to add a custom event. We already have one down there, so let's add another one, or that's our event receive draw for the crosshair, right? But let's add a custom event. Not get player controller, I always mix those two up. Add custom event, which we're gonna call hit notification. This will just be a simple custom event that we'll use. And what this is gonna do is we're gonna add a variable called last hit time in game time. last hit game time will sound better. Underscore game time. And we'll change it to a float, and we'll say a quick tooltip. The time in game seconds when the last hit to this player occurred. And we want that to, we'll hit F7, I keep forgetting. That'll be, let's give it something like -5,000 at first. It doesn't really, it's not important to it. Like, we're gonna be setting it, and we want it to be transient. We want it to be 0 filled at load. And this will be, let's give it, let's just go pawn data. And that should work. So we want to set that to get game time in seconds. So stores the last, let's say caches instead of stores, the last hit with the owning pawn in game time seconds. Alright, cool. Compile, save. We can do cool GUI stuff with that and all sort of other stuff. We also want to add one more. Let's move this crosshair up and out of the way where it belongs, near the stock nodes. Let's bring this one down to there. Then let's create another custom event. This one, yes, called taken damage notification. How about that? And this is gonna have two inputs. One is gonna be a boolean called be all triggered, or trigger all, I guess would be proper English. Trigger all. I'll just say be all directions. And the other one is gonna be, we need to create it because we don't have, I don't think, no. So let's go back to our content browser. Let's go to blueprints and let's create an enum called, where are you? Enumeration called underscore direction of hit. And this will have, you guessed it, 1, 2, 3, 4. We will have left, we will have right, and what are their complements? Top and bottom. Pretty standard. Save. So we're going to use that for some cool things. So back in our HUD, we just need to change the first parameter to that. So that will be an underscore hit, direction of hit. There we go. Wait, what did I have? Direction, timeline direction. Okay, and this will be the direction hit came from. So what we want to do is we want to go into a branch and say did come from all directions. If true, then we do a for each loop, which takes another variable which we need to create. So let's take this array, right click. We can't promote an array, so let's duplicate this last hit game time, and let's call it last hit game times, maybe, or no, last hit times. Sure, why not? We'll make an array, and it doesn't need to be replicated. It does need to be transient, which we already have, and let's compile, and let's give it like just a couple stock elements. We'll go for all 4 directions because that'll be what it's for. So on the left we'll say -5,000, on the right we'll say -5,000, 50,000, whatever. On the top we'll say -5,000, on the bottom we'll say -5,000. I keep going 50,000, so we'll just keep with 50,000. Good enough. Oh, no, I think I went 500. Whatever. Anyways, compile and save. So we'll plug that into the array. And so all we need to do in here is take the array index and set array element. and plug these together, and the target array is this one, so we'll reroute, and we just put the index in there, and the item to put in, let's just get this closer a little bit if we can. The item to put in is get game time in seconds. So this tells us what the game time in seconds when we were last hit from above, below, left, or right. And on false, we do something very similarly. So if it wasn't from all directions, we do a we go into a branch and we check. First of all, we take direction hit came from, we turn it into an int, so toInt byte. So that'll turn left into 0, right into 1, top into 2, bottom into 3. We need to create a macro. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our blueprints, and I'm going to create a new folder called let's go func underscore macro underscore libs. So we function and macro libraries, which we'll set to orange. Let's create a new blueprint macro library. It'll be of the type object, and we'll call it BPM. So that's blueprint macro, obviously, and we'll just call this helper funcs, or rather helper macros. And so all we want to do in here for now, we just need a very simple one called is valid array index. So this is just like an is valid that we normally do, except this is for arrays instead of objects. So we go new, and we need an array to test, or array to check. Test is shorter. Array to test. And this will be an wildcard array, and then we'll make a new, and it will be an integer non-array, and this will be index to test, and then we'll output a boolean called b is valid. And so all we do is we check the array to test. First of all, we need to get its length. How many indexes does it have? We need to check if it is less than, integer is less than, if, let's disconnect that, if the index to test, come on, is less than the length, and boolean, and the index to test is greater than or equal to 0. So if the index is 0 or more, if it's -1, it's no good. And if it's over the length, then we know it's out of range. So this is basically making sure it's within range and not an out of range error, basically, in programming terms. So if these are both true, or if they're false, then we go b is valid. So it just checks whether it's true or false. Comment checks whether an index in an array is valid or not. In range, aka 0 to x. Save, close, save everything while we're at it. Let's go back to our BP HUD. And so we just need to use that. So we take this integer, then we do is valid array index, and the array that we're testing is going to be the last hit times. And if it is valid, we go into the boolean, or the is valid return, we go into the branch, sorry. And we also take this integer and we're gonna reroute it a bit. Just put this over here so it's not colliding with that. I'm gonna reroute it all the way over here, and we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna set array element, and that'll be the index. And of course, the target array will. Whoa. The target array, come on. Oh, you're right, you can't reroute arrays of wildcards, apparently. I should submit that as a bug. Although, is it really a bug? I have to think about it. But I'm not going to think about it right now because that fixes it. Like so, just got to go the other way. And the item we want to add is, of course, get game time in seconds. Like so. And if it's not valid, then we obviously don't add it. So, this is directional base. This is all directions. So this gets game time in seconds, set to hit direction. Good enough for me. So that should be all we need to do in the HUD class. My mic is definitely clipping. I gotta speak a little quieter. So yeah, we were in the player controller last, I believe. So let's compile F7 and Control S. Let's save. We were in the player controller. We had this crazy setup for whatever reason. Oh right, the radio menu. Utility test. We can delete that. So what we need to do is, alright, this is input graph, configuration, event graph. So this is BlenderTek. Suicide, request player respawn. Yeah, we'll do it in here. That's our lobby test stuff. Alright, I started working here. So yeah, this is where I'm gonna continue working. So I'm gonna create a new, actually we need to go edit projects, not plugins, edit project settings, input, excuse me. We need an action mapping called ScoreBoard, which is going to be set to something like tab. Pretty standard. Compile and save. So now back in our player controller, we can do ScoreBoard. So when that key is pressed, what are we going to do? We are going to cast to BP HUD. And what are we going to cast into it? Well, that's pretty easy. Since we're a player controller, we can just do get HUD. When I was first learning Unreal, it took me forever to figure out that node was there, and it helped me amazingly. And then we want to also cast BP HUD for when we are released. And what do we want to do, would you figure? Well, we want to call ScoreBoard. And we want to set it to visible. We need its target, and same thing down here. So when it's pressed, we show it. When it's released, we don't. I'd like to drive that through a variable, but it really doesn't need to be. It's pretty simple. It's just when it's pressed, show it. When it's not, don't. Good enough for now. So handles, displaying the killboard on user input. On user input for input action ScoreBoard. Alrighty. So we should be good in the player controller for now, so we can hit F7 to compile, Control S to save, close him out of there, project settings we can close, lobby we can close, player state we can close. What next? Let's check out our game state. I just gave it a once over and I think it is actually fine. So let's move on to, well, I don't want to do the character yet, but our game mode, as you all know, is going to need a ton of logic. So let's get it out of the way. Go on another blueprint spree. So let's start with the basics. Function. Score a kill. This is going to take us a while, I'll tell you that much. So, when we have a scored kill, we need a input. We need a, just as we did before, we need a killer, which is going to be a controller reference. Why am I typing that in? I shouldn't be recording this early. Controller reference. We're going to need a victim, which is going to be a BP character base character reference. And since we're going to have weapons eventually, we're going to need an actor reference, which will be death caused by. Let's go caused by. So this is going to require a lot of work. So let's start with a sequence. We're going to need lots of them probably. So the first thing we're going to need to do is go way up into a branch. So let's give us lots of room to work. Or let's give ourselves lots of room to work, I guess would be the proper way to say that. And what we want to check first is if this kill was friendly fire or not. So first of all, we need to check the number of teams. And if that is greater than 1, then we know we can have friendly fire. If it's only 1, we can't have friendly fire, because everyone's on the same team. Alright, so if false, we don't do anything, obviously. If true, however, we go into another branch. And this is where it starts to get a little bit spaghetti. We do an AND boolean. We need 2 is valid peer calls. Is valid. 1 for the killer, 1 for the victim. So is valid, 1 and 2. And plug them in. And so the top one is the killer, the bottom one is the victim, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. So let's take our killer is valid, victim is valid. Let's pop them right on top of each other. Try to keep as much room as possible. If false, we're going to do some stuff, so let's do a reroute. If true, and actually what we're going to need is their player states, so let's drag off, actually we need to reroute, so let's double click here on each of them, and let's drag down, I guess, and we'll do a get player state. That's the default value, of course, not one created by ourselves, and get player state. We'll try to keep this organized so we know that victims on the bottom and killers on top. So the player states of each of those. Done deal. Let's see if we can clean this up a little more. Alright, cool. So if true, then we go into yet another branch. And what do you think we're going to check? We're going to check, well, it's not that easy, but first we cast each of these to a player state, of course, here. And off of those, we first of all make sure that they both exist, so do an AND boolean on both of the successes. So first of all, we make sure that both player states exist. If true, we go into another branch. I wonder if we can hide this in here somehow. Make this nice and clean. So if they both exist, then we want to get their team number. So get team number on both of them. And if they are both equal, so equal, double equal, remember for comparison, if you're not a programmer, double equal, then we go into our branch. Let's bring this back so it's clean. If true, then we set something extremely simple enough. We just create a local variable called L underscore B was FF kill. Friendly fire kill. We just set it to true. False, we don't do anything. However, we need to go back to our second branch, where we check if we check if these two inputs are actually valid, and if they are not, then we go into a branch in which we check, we do an AND boolean. See if I can bring this up maybe. Probably bring this up too. I like that. Bring this up, gives us some room. All right, so what we need to check is similar, but we need to bring up our caused by actor reference. So we will, how are we gonna do this? Let's just keep them in order. We got killer, victim, caused by. Although I wish I could space these. They're separated. I guess I can like that. Alright, so killer, victim, caused by. Good enough. Alright, so whatever it was caused by, we need to get the instigator pawn. And that's a stock value. Again, nothing we've created. And whoever instigated it, we need to get their player state. Same thing, nothing we've created, but it's all replicated. Then we need to cast to our player state purely as a peer cast. And off of that, we need to do the same thing. First of all, we need to make sure that it was successful. I'll bring this down. Then we need to simply, since we dealt with a killer and a victim before, now we're looking for a victim and caused by. So the complement basically. So we want to check the victim again. So I'm going to take the victim rewrote here, and we're going to get player state. Oops, not stored player state, which I say we should change to cache, but whatever. Get player state. Maybe we should do it this way because that makes more sense to me. So if that was a successful cast that is, and if the killer cast to BP player state, convert to peer, if the victim, if they were both successful, go into our branch, then we want to get their team numbers. So get a team number. Whoops. And if they are equal, double equal, we go into yet another branch. Could use a 2 branch for this almost. We'll get to that later. Then we say yes, it was also a team kill if true. So basically, if the team number of the instigator and the victim, or the killer and the victim, are the same, then we say it was a friendly fire. Otherwise, friendly fire is by default set to false. So we first check if it was, whoops, oh, all caps, FF friendly fire kill. Let's move that up because that went way further than I intended. Sequence node 2. Alright, next, basically if the damage causer, we should call this, yeah, we should go damage caused by. So if the damage causer is valid, then we need to give the killer a kill credit, and then we need to also, with the increment, remember, and then we need to increment the victim's deaths. But if both the killer and the victim, if their player states are the same, we don't score a kill at all. Then we tell everyone about the kill so that their scoreboards get updated. So what we need to do this now is, first of all, we do an is valid, because we don't want to do any of this if it's not valid. So we check if the damage that the kill was caused by, if that actor is a valid or not. Is actor that caused damage valid? We don't want to do anything past this if it's not valid. That's just wasting network bandwidth and performance. We could give ourselves a debug message if we want, but we will for now. Let's do a print string, and we're just gonna say tried to call score a kill in game state, but damage causer was invalid. Just so that we know that there's an error going on. If it is valid, however, let's go into a sequence, because we got lots of stuff to check and set and get and do. So the first thing we need to do is go into a branch. And what are we going to check? Well, we need to check the same thing. We're going to want the killer rerouted. We're going to want the victim rerouted. And we're going to want the damage caused by rerouted. So these are always going to be in order so we don't confuse them. That way we don't need extra comments, and that way we don't need to create a million functions. Because this is generally out of sight. This would be like a private method. So we check if, well, first we get the player state of the killer, so get player state. I should really make a key for that. Then we get the player state of the victim, so we're just gonna copy and paste that, I guess. Whoops. Right, different player state. Get player state. So we get the player state of the controller and of the BP character victim, and we need to check if they are not equal to each other. We go into that branch. Let's see if we can bring this back. If they're not equal to each other, there we go. If true, let's go all the way over, and we need to call, shoot, I don't think I can do this now. We need to call our increment kill count. There we go, yeah, in the player state. So let's just plug in the player state. And who are we going to credit it with? Well, the killer. So what we need to take the killer's player state, and we need to cast to, oh yeah, I got context sensitive off. Cast to BP player state pure, and plug that in. So killer gets a kill +1. And then we also need to notification, send out kill notification from that player state that we are in fact the killer. but that'll be connected here in a minute. We also need to get the player state of the victim. So we will want to cast to BP player state peer. And what do? We increment death count. Again, this will be connected in a minute. Actually, we can do it from here. This will be 1 in the sequence. So let's set that up here. Oh. All right, so killer gets a kill, then we increment the death count of the victim only if we ensure that it's a kill, and then we broadcast a kill message, which will be the third one. We're gonna leave some room in here because let's add a reroute. Weapon stuff goes here. We're gonna want to know what they were killed with and such. So that goes right into there. And that's what this reroute will be used for later too. The victim, send out kill notification victim. Obviously we know who the victim is, like so. Can we leave that up there so it's nice? I guess we'll just reroute this. Yes, that should work just fine. But we also, in addition to incrementing his kill count, we also need to get his team number, because remember we're tracking team kills as well. Then what we do is we where should I do this? We got lots going on here. So we increment the kill count. Then let's do it up here maybe. Get the game state, cast to it purely, pure cast. I don't even know how to say that properly. Then we get teams data. I can remember teams now. Get teams data. And then we do an array get, hold down A and click. And what array do we want to get? Well, we want to get our team number or what index in the array do we want? We want to get our team from the team's data array, and then we want to increment a team kill. So kill, add a kill. No, yeah, add a kill on team's data. Perfect. We added that in there. Although I should call it increment kill count as well to keep it nice and neat. And was the kill friendly fire? We put an L. B was FF kill into there. Like I said, we gotta drive everything with variables. We try not to just have stuff all over the place set in different areas. Goes back to your basic programming practice with making sure that you create classes and objects properly, and you only get and set them basically from one area. So this basically check if damage, check if actor that caused damage is valid, and then credit the killer +1 kill and victim +1 death if killer and victim are the same. Don't score a kill. Oh, come on, I was typing. God damn it, I hate Unreal sometimes. I'm gonna type up here. If, come on, it's not even working there. If the actor that caused the damage is valid, we give the killer +1 kill and the victim +1 death. if killer and victim are the same, we don't score a kill. Then we broadcast out a kill notification to every player listening. Perfect. Alright, so that was a heavy one. Took up a lot of time. Let's give it a category. This will be under game probably. I'm gonna put this under game, damage and kills maybe. We also have add kill, that can go in damage and kills. Send out kill notification, that can go in damage and kills. Oh, this is all kills. Maybe we can just call this kills. In fact, I might do that. But I can't rename it from the. Oh, I can. Nice. That. When did they change that? That is so handy. Super cool. All right. So next, so we have score a kill. What else do we need? We have send out kill notification. That is done as far as I am. As far as I know. Sorry. We have respawn on it. What else? We have a ranking. No, we have the ranking. Oh wait, find team number with highest score, find player with highest score. Yeah, so we do have the ranking then. So that's just fine and dandy in my eyes. Update and set match time remaining. Awesome. Totally done. Is in post game and pre game. We don't have that yet, do we? Should probably add that because that's pretty important. And it's really easy and we'll need it. So let's add a function called are we in pre-game? And this will just have a Boolean output called be in pre-game. Easy enough, I figure. And so all we do is we get our game state, we cast to it purely, give it, we do a pure cast to it, that's what I should say. Then we check is in pregame, is pregame, is the game state pregame, that's what we called it, right? And plug that right into there. So we want to know in our game mode and the game state, we need to know that. Compile and save everything. This should probably be under matches. Can I drag it in there? Is that new too? No. That'd be nice though. There's always room for little additions. Are we in pregame goes into game matches. Then we want to probably duplicate that and check are we in post game. And we open that up and all we do is same thing, but we do state is end. Oh, maybe I don't have this one yet. Let's see, let's go to our game state. What do we have? Is game pre-game and post-game. But what we don't have is the one we need. One more. Just is game state end summary. And this just has one simple output also called B is in end summary. And so all we do is we get our get state. Where are you? Get gameplay state. Then we check double equal sign. Is it equal enum to end summary? right into there. I mean, this needs to be pure and constant, and let's put it, it'll be fine. Although we should, yeah, we can put this in states. States. Compile and save. Back to our game mode. Now we're able to do what I was intending to do, which is, are we in post game? Well, we are in post game if state is in post game. Just like that. Sorry, these should be pure and constant as well. I totally forgot. So are we in pre-game and post-game, pure and constant. So compile and save, and we need one last one. Duplicate it. Are we in endgame summary? Open it up. All we do is just change that to state end summary. So we're getting there with the functions. It's the logic that's gonna kill us. But creating your functions is always good. You want to get those out of the way. Alright, we got those out of the way. We got our game options where we parse the int. We even set up game mode options. Nice. That's awesome. Get map voting ready. We set that up. Awesome. So I think we're good there for now. So now the fun one, the character. I'm getting long, but I'm kind of making these videos long, so let's go BP based character. And we really haven't done a lot of work in here. It really needs a lot of work. But that's just fine. Where should we start? I think if we open up deal taken damage, now that we have instigation, and now that we have our hit zones kind of set up, we should probably fix this, because we never finished it. So what we're gonna need is probably, let's create a variable called last damage event, or last damage taken. Simple enough. And that will be a s underscore. We haven't created that. So let's go back to our content browser and right click blueprints structure s underscore, we'll call this damage event data. So what we're going to do in here is how much damage was caused, and that will be a float. What was the type of damage? I know we've only done any damage, but we're gonna need to separate those for grenades and stuff, and vehicles and explosions. So we'll want damage type, and that's default object type. We need damage instigated by. This will be a controller reference. Then we need damage caused by. This will be an actor reference. And lastly, we need a hit zone. What hit zone was hit? And that will just be a name. So that would be left, right, up, down, etc. So let's save that. Let's go back to our base character. And so how are we gonna do this? We basically need to do a bunch of stuff over. Let's see. So check for dead. Well, instigated by is now gonna need to come down here. We have damage causer. Oops, that wasn't a reroute. Let's bring this all down, actually. We're gonna need to add one more in here called damage type. We're gonna need to sort that out sooner or later. We might as well do it while we're in here. So damage type, which will be, well, you guessed it, damage type reference. Alrighty, and I'm gonna move that up just to keep that in line with my mind. Damage type instigated by an actor. Perfect. So we'll want to rewrite that as well. Good enough. Well, they can be a little bit closer if we want, maybe. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to rewrite this one more time. Damage causer. And then plug it into get display name. Alright, so what we need to do, I'm just going to start this function over fresh. I'm going to leave those rewrites. This part is fine, where we check if we're dead. Yeah, let's just start with that. So first we check, are we dead? If true, we do nothing. If false, then we take our damage and we set if false, we don't set our health anymore. If false, we first set last damage. I never even set that. We need to set last damage taken to structure underscore damage event data. Totally forgot to do that. And let's put this in a category. Damage, there it is. And it needs to be transient. Compile and save while we're at it. So, if false, if we're not already dead, then we set last damage. Set last damage taken. What do we set it to? Well, we need to make this event data. So, the damage is going to be, we need to get health. We need to subtract float. We need to subtract damage. This is why I recommended redoing it, because this is going to get cramped. Then we want to clamp it. What do we want to clamp it to? Well, remember I said, what if we want to change our character's health? Well, that's why we create the max HP variable. So we clamp it to 0 and get max HP. That way you only have to change that configuration variable, as you can see, config, and you don't have to go through all these functions setting this over and over. And we return it, take its return value, I guess, rather. We return it, yeah, into damage. And the damage type will be damage type. And the damage instigator, you can see I just made it in order, will be the instigator. Damage caused by will be the damage causer actor. The hit zone, however, we need to get last damage taken. We need to break, actually we need to split the structure. Put it there so it's nice and organized. And last damage hit zone. Is that cleaner? Whatever, this function will be out of sight, so I'm fine with it. And so we do that, we set last damage taken. We're gonna need damage in other places, so I'm going to reroute it up as well, way over to here. Make sure it's straight. There we go. Is that straight? I hope so. Then we set our health. Can't set our health before we set last damage event data, or else we'll get bad results. So set health, remember that's a rep notify. What do we set it to? Well, we set it to that clamped value right here. Just give it one quick little reroute down. Done deal. She's a done deal. Just like so. I like it. Then we need to check if something is valid. So, is valid. Is valid, question mark. And what object are we checking if is valid? That would be the damage causer. the actor that caused the damage. Check if it is valid or not. Should leave a note since it's so far away. Is actor that caused damage valid? Darn, I thought that would fit. That will. Good enough. If it is valid, we need to make a new function. If it's not valid, then did we make that? Yeah, deal taken damage. Is this one? Yeah, no. We're gonna need another function. Let's see, I don't think I made it. Whoops, not apply damage. Need to report, no, no, we need to create some functions. So let's do the easy one first. If it is valid, we do a function called getHitDir, so direction. And in this function, another fun one, we're gonna create, remember what we were doing it from the actor that caused the damage. So what we need is the exact same thing. We need an actor reference, which will be the actor that caused damage. We want to first of all get that actor's location, and this is all going to go into a branch. We're going to do a lot of vector math here. So we're going to get the actor's location and subtract a vector minus a vector. Subtract, so the actor that caused the damage versus this actor's location. So just copy and paste this, plug it in. So the difference between the two basically. Then we want to rotate the vector. That gives us degrees between the vectors. So aka a direction, a heading, a bearing. We want to make a rotator. And so what we want to do is we want to get base aim rotation. So that is the view. So the player's eyes direction. And we want to split that. And all we're going to change is the yaw, the Z. We're going to multiply it float by -1. We're going to invert it and put it into the yaw. So we're only worried about the yaw, aka what direction in the Z axis. So that's like if you put your hand on your head or if you just spin around in circles, basically that's whatever direction is it coming from. You know, Z is yaw, so that's spinning around in a circle on top. So that's this blue arrow right here. We're spinning around that. If we rotate, this is yaw. So what direction in that yaw did it come from, basically? And by rotating that vector by base aim rotation, we get a vector back. And we're gonna break that vector. I would split it, but I don't want to break that node. Then we want to make a vector. Make vectors. Make vector. We're not worried about the Z anymore. We already dealt with that. So just X and Y. Z doesn't matter. Then we want to normalize. So that gets us one normal unit. Then we want to break that vector. Probably bring this all in a bit closer here. And we want to get the absolute positive value of X and Y. So let's go abs. And then we want to check if one is greater than the other. If so, that feeds into that branch. And we're also still going to need that data, so let's just rewrote. Z again doesn't matter. So basically, if true, that means forwards or backwards. False means left or right, depending on what we get as a result. And so what we need to do to check that is we need to check, is x greater than 0? And we need to check if y is greater than 0. And this goes straight into another branch. So if true, so again, that means we're working with forwards and backwards. Then we check the x if it's greater than 0. So if true, that means forwards. False equals backwards. I meant this shorter. Goes forwards, backwards, backwards. So, what do? You guessed it, we need another variable called, actually this will be local because it's only used here. This will be L, hit direction output, which is going to be, you guessed it, E underscore hit. Oh, come on. We created that, didn't we? Direction of hit. There we go. So we're going to set it. Remember, true is forward, so we're going to set it to top. So that way we can get an indicator that it's coming from somewhere that direction of the screen. If false, we're going to set it to bottom, so it's coming from below us or behind us, basically. And then finally, we come to our return node. We add a return node. I guess I forgot to add that, which we output direction of hit, which is, of course, whoops, E underscore direction of hit. And we output our local variable. And we also do that here. Alright, so that's top and bottom handled. How do we check right and left? Well, false means left and right. So then we can go ahead and we can go into, whoops, we can go into another branch. Whoa, should have just not typed it. Sorry. Oh, no, I got this. Just like that, though, is what I meant to do. Something like that. So if false, we check if y is greater than 0. T equals right. T equals right. False equals left. Don't know why I switched that up. So, if true, of course, set it to right. If false, we set it to left, and then we have all 4 directions covered. And then we just return them. Like so. Alrighty, cool. F7 compile. That worked. Perfect. And save. And this should go under, this will be under info. Info damage hits underscore damage. Nested. Alright, so what this does is uses vector math to calculate the direction the actor that caused the damage is in relation to us, forward, backwards, left, right. based on your whatever. You guys saw how it's done. It doesn't really matter, we're just gonna use it. Compile and save. Let's close that out. So if the actor that caused the damage is valid, then we get the hit direction. And target self, actor that caused damage. Who is that? You guessed it. Mr. This guy down here. Let's reroute that a bit to keep it in conformance with my no rerouting parameters. And if it's not valid, and if it is valid, we still need more functions. So I'm actually gonna reroute this down here, and that'll work. So we need one more function, and don't worry, this one's easy. Let's go to custom events and damage. This is all kind of messed up. I'm gonna go above car death. I'm gonna create a new custom event called notification of damage taken. And this is replicated. We want to run it on the owning client from the server. And we want it to be reliable. Of course, damage is very important. It has 3 inputs. We have the direction of hit. We have, remember we were working B, was hit all directions. And we have the amount of damage, which is a float. So we're just going to a branch. In fact, because of the size of this, I'm going to bring up 1 square. Oh, come on. I hate when it breaks. There we go. And then you need to right click. So the condition is, we don't have that yet, do we? Get player controller, get instigator controller. No, we haven't created that helper function yet. So let's create a function. We have helper functions here. Nested functions, yeah, no, okay. So let's duplicate is car in third person, and let's name this get casted controller. Open that up, and oh, forgot it was that small. What we need is B is valid, and we need a BP player controller reference, which is a controller out. We can get rid of that. Was that a local variable? I hope not. So what we do in this one, and it is peer. Oh, it already is peer. Perfect. All we do is we go straight to the return node. We get controller. Pawn get controller, that is. Then we cast to BP player controller. And we're going to be using this logic over and over. That's why we're creating a little helper function. That is the controller out, and if it was successful, is B is valid. So this it's a helper function that casts our player controller to our character for us. Since it's a helper function, I'm not going to do any more work on it. Just save. Compile and save, close. So now we can finish this apply receive damage setup. So once we get the hit direction, then we simply call that something replicated. We took damage notification of damage taken. So we notify everyone that we are in fact damaged by a certain amount. And the hit direction is the direction of hit, and B was all directions, false. However, if it is not valid, then we do the same thing, except we hit all directions, yes, so that we don't we don't get a false hit direction notification, but it's still, yeah, just the way it works. So let's comment this. So low, let's see, apply, let's zoom in. A, yeah, that's what it is. A, apply damage to health and kill the pawn if health is less than or equal to 0, and notify everyone playing of the most recent damage event. Done and done. So it's F7 to compile, save. So that's that one. What else? Let's see here. Well, now that we have that, we can fix up our damage setup. And it looks like we're gonna have to wait one more video before we get to the actual kill board, or more possibly. But yeah, this was a complete mess. The event any damage junk here. I am going to just delete this all. Whoops, what was that back there? Set player debug info. I'm gonna leave that for now. I'm just gonna delete this event any damage stuff. Delete. We said it was temporary, it's gone. And this other crap, yes, I'm calling it crap at this point because we're starting to get to a more wholesome setup. I am just gonna totally take it out of the way for now. So we have notification of damage taken. Oh, we never finished that. Ha! That's helpful. I told you it was gonna be easy and I just gave you a branch. Yeah, it's that easy. I forgot. We're gonna use our get casted controller. Is valid goes into the branch. Controller out, we want to get their HUD. Then we want to cast to BP HUD. Then we want to create a peer cast to our HUD. I gotta remember to say it that way. Then on our HUD we notify damage, taken damage notification. If true, only if the casted controller is valid, and we need the hit direction, and we need to know if it triggers all directions. That would basically be like if a grenade lands at your feet, then we notify all directions. Or if we don't know from where it is, we do no directions. That's where that comes into use. So notify the HUD class of damage events. Maybe I'll work above it. So what we're gonna do is, let's start with event point damage. Let's see if we can finish it. If not, we'll finish it next video. So what we do is, yeah, we're gonna we need a blueprint interface. Yeah, I can't get anywhere out of it. What we can do is we can start setting it up. Instigated by needs to be rerouted, as does damage type. Remember, just like the way we set up the other ones, damage type, instigator, actor that caused the damage. 1, 2, 3. So those can be set up like so. And yeah. Do something like that. That's really about all that I know of. But we can, however, finish the end of it if we continue rerouting. So all we do is apply damage, deal taken damage. So that's the damage type, that's the instigator, and this is the actor that caused it. And a branch is going to come before it, and true, because we're going to check if the modified damage is... Oh, I'm thinking of a totally different event. I'm working on point damage. No, we can totally do this. But I'm going to leave this set up because if that is going to work totally fine for event radial damage. All we got to do is just plug those back in. So might as well just do what we were doing there, because all we need to do is, the condition for taking damage here is making sure that damage is greater than 0. And then we'll actually apply that damage, but we need a interface for that first, because we have stuff like friendly fire, and certain classes are going to do more damage than others, so we're going to need to modify how much damage we do. So that's what that is. Event point damage. This is just simple. You dealt this much damage. So all we do is we call deal taking damage. And just plug in damage and damage type and instigated by and damage causer, and I think that's that. So that's easy, that one, but it's not done yet. Yeah, that'll work. What about character death now that we've changed some things? We check if we're dead. If we aren't and we're calling this, then we set ourselves to dead. Then we do a switch has auth. Then we score a kill. Yep. Temporary's instigated damage. Oh, we can totally fix this up now. So let's delete this temporary. So we add a kill. Target. Yep, game mode. Get game mode. Killer. Victim is ourselves. The killer, though, we can totally do that now. So all we do is we get last damage taken. Break it. And we get the damage instigator. Yeah, right there. Instigated by. Like so. Let's see, we can probably bring this back. Like so, maybe. Maybe up there. No, that's not the way they're in. We should put these in the order they're in. Victim self. That looks much better. And then destroy actor. Well, so when we're gonna want, woof, what did I just do? Event graph. Oh, I went to a different. We're gonna want to disable movement on our character movement component. We're going to add in some really cool stuff when we kill people. We're going to want to third person. Enable third person view. Yes. We're going to want to set collision profile name on the mesh. And we haven't created that yet, but it's going to be called Ragdoll Death. To do, not finished. We just set up that collision profile in our settings. Then on the mesh, we also need to set simulate physics to true so that it'll ragdoll. And we need to take our capsule component, and so that it can ragdoll, we need to set collision enabled to false. So yeah, no collision. That way just the mesh will ragdoll and the capsule won't get in the way. Then we need to take player info and we need to destroy it so it doesn't get in the way. And until we get weapons, that is about it. So then we delay and destroy actor. So we'll leave that there for now. Temporary, because that's also not how we're going to destroy ourselves. But there, that adds a lot in. Once we set up our ragdoll collision, we'll be able to get ragdoll deaths. And now we have the ability to add the kill with an actual killer known on authority. But we also need to do stuff on remote. So I'm going to rewrote, and we still do all this stuff. We don't deal with kills as a client. That's the server's job. Like so. Is there any other quick ones we can do related to death and health and kills? I don't really think so. Yeah. Here's what we're gonna do. We don't need the destroy actor and delay because we're gonna do a nifty custom event, which is called add a custom event, or no, this is a stock event, which you probably don't know about. Event unpossessed. Once we remove the player controller from this character, then they die. We basically garbage collect. Set lifespan. We make sure to kill it in like 8 seconds. So, destroy character after 8 seconds. Garbage collection. When unpossessed. Perfect. So we'll be able to call that. But we also need on event possessed, make sure that we don't kill ourselves. So we need to do the same thing, just set it to 0, which is infinity if you read this. So infinity lifespan if possessed, and a great place to set team and class visual details is right there, because that's when you're possessed. When you're possessed the first or another time, you want to make sure you change any details if they need to be changed. So that'll be a function we need to put in there. We might as well create a custom event called RCVD player state. Do we already create that? No, I don't think so. No. So what we do is we're gonna set text on player info, and that value is gonna be we're gonna get stored player state. We're going to get player name. We're going to append, player name, space, or space, health. How about dash space dash health, colon, space, and then we get health. This will just be debug for now. We're going to make 3D widgets for that, but then we can return that. And this, yeah, that doesn't need to be replicated. Alright, cool. And this is also another good place to do this. Alright, yeah, I'm going to leave it off there. We're getting pretty long again. So, yeah, thanks for watching from the team here at BlenderTek, a division of BlenderTek. If you enjoyed this video and learned something, please like it, subscribe. We also take donations. We're on social media links, as you can see. If you dislike this video, let us know why. So we'll see you next time. Remember.